So 5 new cases overnight in Queensland added to our data, but 3 of them were actually acquired or picked up interstate. So they'll be added to our numbers and taken off their numbers. So there are actually 2 new cases really in Queensland, one of them in the Gold Coast, and we're still working through where that individual contracted the infection, and the other in Brisbane, who was a household contact of a known case. So that's good news. What happened over the weekend, I understand, was very good, that most people heard the messaging and were very, very responsible. So that'll aid us as we go forward. So it is important to recognise that we are still getting the occasional case, and if we don't manage that and we have more people out and about, it could be a risk. So that's why it's so important that people, wherever possible, maintain that 1.5 metre distance, and if they're unwell with any symptoms at all, stay home and go and get tested. We have seen a slow decline in the number of people coming forward to be tested, and I'm sure that's just because we're not seeing respiratory disease in our community, so people are well, so don't feel the need to be tested. But definitely, if you've got any symptoms at all, please, this is really, really important. Just don't stay at home, come forward and get tested, because then we can, if it is COVID-19, make sure we immediately contact trace anyone you've come into contact with. Remember, for the vast majority of people, this is a mild disease, so that's why you need to be attuned to any symptoms and come and get tested. Thank you.
Yes. Look, we review the border restrictions at the end of every month, and I can't see that happening anytime soon. But of course, we've got to take it one step at a time. As Dr. Young always says, you lift some restrictions, you examine it for 2 weeks, and then you can look at lifting further restrictions. And of course, this week I'll be starting a lot of conversations with heads of the cafes and the restaurant associations. I'll also be speaking with tourism operators as well to put in place our clear roadmap to recovery. It is really important that once we have settled our plan for schools, that now we can focus on our plan for Queensland's economic recovery, including jobs. And of course, great news today in terms of the $1 billion Varsity Lakes to Tugun, expansion of the motorway. Some concrete barriers will be going up, and of course that's hundreds of jobs for the Gold Coast, but we are looking at those recovery plans right across Queensland, especially regional Queensland as well as the southeast. Yes, and the work is underway. Absolutely, it's underway, and we'll be speaking with those operators this week as well to look at what are those mechanisms that need to be put in place, especially, COVID safe for different types of accommodation. Yeah, but what it might be, Lane, first and foremost, is it might be Queensland supporting Queenslanders. And, yeah, so it might be some, short-term accommodation initially, but we need to take this cautiously. And, of course, National Cabinet is looking at what restrictions can be lifted and some timeframes around that. That would be probably the first step, yes. Yeah, well, we'll be speaking with them this week, and what I would be hoping that they would start formulating is COVID-safe plans. So what does it mean in this new COVID world to open up safely? And of course, that's looking at how many patrons they can have in. What we've seen in other countries is outdoor areas opening up first. So, of course, we'll be looking at all those measures. And as we put in place our plan for schools, we will have our plan for cafes and restaurants. We'll have our plan for tourism, our recovery roadmap for the future.